What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for March 31st, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Well, that was a complete and total bust of an opening day. Phillies lost 11-7. I guess some positives to take out of it. Castellanos looked good. JT looked good. Brandon Marsh looked good. Bohm obviously looked pretty well. Some negatives there. Nola, he's been kind of in a slump if you go back even to the World Series. So hopefully that's just more being tired than anything. The bullpen, Soto specifically, it is the first game. The Astros also lost. The Padres got spanked. So there's 161 more games left. It's not time to panic yet. It's only one game in. Now, if we're 4 weeks in and we're still losing like this, then it might be time to panic. But until then, we'll get there. Quick Sixers standings update. They're at home tonight against Toronto. They're currently 2.5 games behind Boston for the second spot and 2.5 games up on Cleveland for the third. So tonight would be a good time for them to win. We'd cash our over 50.5 wins bet, as well as put some more distance between us and the Cavs. Flyers lost last night 5-4 in overtime to Ottawa. They remain firmly in 26th place. Still would like to see them maybe drop another place or two, but can't really necessarily complain as long as they're not above 22nd place. We mentioned yesterday about the Temple coach, Adam Fisher. Saw a little press conference with him, and he talked about celebrating, or not necessarily a press conference, but a video from the locker room where he talked about celebrating each other and just winning. And you might get 15 this game. You might get 15 the next. I don't care as long as we're winning, and that's what we're celebrating and moving on. Kind of like that. It harkens to me back to the old John Chaney, winning is an attitude type thing. And I think that's what this program needs. As much as I liked Aaron McKee as a hire, I felt like, and it was tough for him to kind of bring in or establish a culture with the way things were set up. But I feel like even with Fran Dunphy, the team didn't really have an identity. And even with Dunphy, I think the identity was they didn't have an identity. So hopefully Fisher can come in and give these guys an attitude, like that toughness, and hopefully also he'll stick around for more than a couple years, but we will see about that. All right, so we're going to change things up a little bit, and we're going to do our This Day in Philly Sports History first, and then we are going to hit our This Day in Women's Sports History spotlight that way, because it's the last day of Women's History Month, and there's a lot to celebrate and wrap up with that. But on this day, back in 1998, the Phillies and the Mets had opening day at Shea Stadium. The Mets won 1-0 in 14 innings. It was scoreless for obviously the first 13 innings until Albert Castillo knocked in Brian McRae. Ricky Bowe took the loss. Curt Schilling was great in that game. I think this was his last season actually in Philly, but he went 8 innings, 2 hits, 9 Ks on 121 pitches. Yeah, nobody today is getting 121 pitches. That's insane. But the reason I bring this up is because it was the longest scoreless opening day game in National League history, and it was by a long shot. And it was a shame. Like, it was such a good game. And to have the Phils kind of blow up. But that was very symbolic of the team right around this time. So the longest scoreless opening day game in Major League Baseball history also involved Philadelphia. And the Washington Senators beat the Philadelphia A's 1-0 in 15 innings back in 1926. So 2 records for both leagues, Philly related, not positive. But such is life when you're a Philly fan. But in 1998, those Phils, they went 75-87, so not terrible. They had some decent players, but they finished 31 games back of the Braves, which is just mind-blowing. Think about that. Like, that's 31 games. Like, that's insane. But I feel like that team was like the all-time Harry Kalas pronunciation team. They had Doug Glanville and Greg Jeffries, but and Scott Rowland was on that team, who's just inducted into the Hall of Fame. but Mike Lieberthal, Rico Bronya, Desi Relaford, and Bobby Abreu. And those were, by the way, that was a terrible Harry Kalas impersonation, but some of my favorite players' names to say and to hear. Just go look up the YouTube and see, but Lieberthal was the best. Mike Lieberthal. But Rico Bronya, I think, is one of my all-time favorite names of any player. So just a little some fun facts from that 98 team, other than the fact they went 13 scoreless innings on the opening day. But that happened on this day back in 1998. Mets won, Phillies nothing in the longest scoreless opening day game in National League history. All right, so let's go now. It's time for today's Philly Sports Women's History Month Spotlight. And before we get into today's spotlight, I just want to say how great this month has been. I've learned a lot, and just it's amazing how many trailblazers in their sports this area has produced. I hope you guys learned a lot from it, because I know, like I said, I know I did. Hopefully this brings awareness to and kind of can promote women's sports and put them on par with the men. I would love to see Philadelphia get a WNBA team. I think it would be good for the city, especially with the rich basketball history that Philly has. I don't know. And it just, men's and women, some of the best players to ever play the game, Dawn Staley, to name one that's very much in the news now. But like just so much history, and I think it would make sense. And even if they didn't play at the Wells Fargo Center, I think you could easily sell out the Leah Kora Center. So just something, I know there's a push for it. The WNBA is looking at expanding. So I want, for one, support it 100%. I would go down to games and just take the kids. Like I think it would be a good experience, especially for this area with such a rich basketball history. All right, so speaking of that rich basketball history, today's Philly Sports Women's History Month Spotlight, we're going to end the month with a bang, possibly even save the best for last. We're going to spotlight Linda Page. She was born in Philly, started playing basketball in middle school. We've talked a lot this month about the lack of girls' sports in high school. So obviously in middle school there wasn't any. So she played against mostly boys when she was in school. And she went to the AAU Junior Olympics, went to Dobbins Tech. By 1980, she had already set multiple City League records for both boys and girls. Then 1981 happened, or the 80-81 season. February of 1981, she scored 100 points in a game, which broke Wilt Chamberlain's city scoring record for all students. Then in March, she broke the city record for points, also held by Wilt Chamberlain. She ended her career with 2,380 points. But wait, there's more. She also played softball and volleyball and was a very, very good softball player, specifically taking Dobbins to the City League or Public League semifinals a couple times. Then she went to North Carolina State. At NC State, she was a 3-time NC State team MVP. She was the ACC leading scorer 3 times, the MVP of the ACC tournament in 1983. She was considered for a tryout for the Globetrotters. She was so good. The first woman to ever even be considered. Obviously, there's a couple women that have played since then, but being the first to even think about, especially in the time when women's sports were just sort of an afterthought, is amazing. But wait, it gets better. She ended up going pro and played over in Spain and Sweden. Obviously, there was no WNBA at the time. Had there been, who knows how great she could have been. She could have really put that league on the map earlier. We might have had a team in Philly. You never know. And then all of a sudden, she just stopped playing basketball to start a law career and had a successful law career fighting for injustices in the city and everything. Then she coached at Dobbins briefly. So she's just the best. Her numbers retired at NC State. She is one of the ACC women basketball legends. She's in the Philly Sports Hall of Fame, the North Carolina State Hall of Fame. I personally think she might legitimately be the best player to ever come out of Philadelphia, male or female. I don't know if my Uncle Randy's listening, and I know he's a big Wilt guy, but I'm telling you, Linda Page probably had a better career and pound for pound might be a better player than Wilt Chamberlain. And we talk a lot about how great Wilt is on this podcast, so that's saying a lot. I mean, it's either her or Wilt. And I mean, think about all of the players that have come out of Philly, male or female, and we're talking about two of them. And Linda Page was she just whatever she wanted to do, she did. And it's a shame she was a victim of the timing of everything. Had she been born 20 years later, she could have been a global superstar. But at the end of the day, she did what she loved. She really gave back to the community, helped out by becoming a lawyer and just fighting for justice and taking care of people that are less fortunate. So you can't necessarily go wrong with that. So she's not only a legend in sports, a legend in life, a legend in the community. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2011 of a heart attack. But I mean, for my money, the best player ever to come out of Philadelphia. I said it. But what a way to end Women's History Month. I hope you guys enjoyed all of this as much as I did. I know it was a lot of fun learning. Really a lot of eye-opening things come up. I mean, obviously some of the great players and coaches that have come out, but just the fact that up until 1982, there were no women's Division I teams. Just some of the women not being allowed to participate in the Olympics. Just amazing, amazing things that are just hard to wrap your head around that they happened so not in the so distant past. But I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out this week's Back to the Future, where we kind of put the exclamation point on Women's History Month. I interviewed Mary Beth Freeman, one of the very best coaches, field hockey players, field hockey coach, just people in general. Definitely worth a listen. Go check it out. Like and subscribe both that podcast as this. Shout out Linda Page, man. You are the greatest to ever do it, and I'm glad that we end it with you because this is just phenomenal. Absolutely. You're up there with Wilt, and sorry, Uncle Randy, I'm putting her a little bit ahead. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a weekend. Let's go Sixers, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.